Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show, where we talk about the biggest issues impacting millennial money, from student loan debt to side hustles to building wealth. We will show you how to get out of debt so that you can build real wealth for the future.
Good to have you here at the College Investor Audio Show. Today, can a college financial aid administrator reduce student loan limits? Let's take a look and see. College financial and aid administrators can reduce student loan limits on a case-by-case basis, but they're more likely to do so with private student loans than federal student loans. Although the statutory authority to reduce federal student loan limits or refuse to certify a loan is pretty broad, guidance published by the U.S. Department of Education has actually narrowed this authority enough that college financial aid administrators really do hesitate to use this authority, except in the most extreme circumstances or when the student is ineligible for federal student loans. Members of Congress have responded by proposing legislation that would allow college financial aid administrators to reduce loan limits on a categorical basis, such as for specific academic majors, degree programs, and to prorate loan limits based on enrollment status. For example, half of the annual loan limits for students who are enrolled on a half-time basis. Okay, so statutory and regulatory authority, let's talk about that. First, a little history. The Higher Education Act of 1965 provides college financial aid administrators with the authority to refuse to certify a federal student loan or to adjust the loan limit. There are several key requirements for this statutory authority, though. First, the refusal to certify a loan and restrictions in loan amounts must be made on a case-by-case basis, and the reason for this action must be documented in the student's file and provided to the student. The refusal to certify a loan and reductions in loan amounts must not discriminate against borrowers based on protected statuses. So now let's dive a little deeper into the authority that's limited by guidance. The U.S. Department of Education has published guidance that limits this authority. In particular, the Department of Education prohibits colleges from establishing across-the-board reductions in loan limits, like reducing annual loan limits for all students to just tuition and fees. That leads us to the Federal Student Aid Handbook, FSA Handbook for short, and that's a source of sub-regulatory guidance published by the U.S. Department of Education concerning the administration of federal student loan programs. Let's take a look at something called the Dear Colleague Letter. So the Dear Colleague Letter lists several examples of situations in which a college may not limit borrowing by students or parents. Here are a few of them. College financial aid administrators cannot limit borrowing to just tuition and other institutional charges. College financial aid administrators cannot limit borrowing on a categorical basis, such as limits that apply to all first-year students, students who live at home, or students in specific majors. College financial aid administrators cannot limit borrowing to just regular academic terms, such as the fall and spring semesters, and cannot prevent borrowing for summer terms. College financial aid administrators cannot have across-the-board reductions in loan limits for all students, such as a $2,000 reduction in loan limits for all students. You just can't do that. The U.S. Department of Education justifies these limitations by arguing that they would conflict with the requirement to consider reductions in loan limits on a case-by-case basis, as we discussed earlier. But the Department of Education would also question a pattern of such reductions, even if the college did not have a written policy concerning such reductions. A lot of colleges, though, feel like this guidance ties their hands with regard to reducing loan limits. They would like to use loan limit reductions to reduce over-borrowing by eligible students. For example, they would really like to be able to reduce loan limits for part-time students and students in certificate and associate's degree programs, or low-paying academic majors whose ability to repay debt will be more limited than students in bachelor's degree programs. As a result, college financial aid administrators mainly refuse to certify a loan when they can document that the student does not intend to repay their student loans. The financial aid administrator has a fiduciary duty to the federal government in the administration of federal student aid funds. College financial aid administrators are also required to reduce loan limits when the student is ineligible for student loans, such as the student is enrolled on less than a half-time basis, the student's total student financial aid plus federal and private student loans exceeds the college's cost of attendance. That would be a big red flag, wouldn't it? The student is not maintaining satisfactory academic progress toward a degree. Okay, let's take a look at some proposals for some changes in loan limits, because there have been several proposals to change the annual and aggregate loan limits on federal student loans as part of reauthorization of the Higher Education Act of 1965. These loan limits were last changed in 2008, and there is some bipartisan support for changing the loan limits. The proposals include the following: a repeal of the federal Grad Plus loan and just replacing it with higher federal Stafford loan limits, add a specific dollar annual and aggregate loan limits for the federal Parent Plus loan, for example, an annual limit of $12,500 per student and an aggregate limit of $56,250 per student. And increase undergraduate federal student loan limits by $2,000 per year, increase graduate federal student loan limits by $8,000 per year. Also, another proposal, allow college financial aid administrators to reduce or prorate loan limits on a program-by-program basis depending on average starting salaries, enrollment status, degree level, and year of the program. It just makes sense. Now let's talk about private student loans. 99% of private student loans are school certified, meaning that the lender asks the college financial aid administrator to confirm that the student is or will be enrolled at the college and that the private student loan, in combination with the student's financial aid and other student loans, will not exceed the college's published cost of attendance. If the cost of attendance will be exceeded, the college financial aid administrator can reduce the loan limit to eliminate the over-award. College financial aid administrators can also certify a private student loan for a lower amount for other reasons too, such as the student's enrollment status, degree level, and academic major, things we've talked about before. They can do that, but they rarely do. So does that answer the question? Can a college financial aid administrator reduce student loan limits? Yes, and no, and maybe, and rarely. So I hope that helps. If you want to dig deeper into this, you can see the article at thecollegeinvestor.com. Just type in the same thing you see in the podcast title, and you'll find it. Thanks so much for stopping by today, and we'll talk to you again real soon.